Hello everyone, hope you're all well. This video is a suggestion or a request by Better Days, one of my subscribers, so thank you for that. Um, this was a video I was going to make anyway because I think it was time for a follow-up. And the purpose of this one is hopefully to give people some insight to what I have experienced on dating sites and also just my general view on it so far. Um, You may know that I made a video a few months ago, I forget exactly when that was, about a particularly challenging experience I had on eHarmony. And I use that as an anecdote to sort of describe what you could face. Um, the context of that is sort of part of the background of this, I guess. But I want to add a bit more and yeah, just share my experience of eHarmony. Well, first of all, why eHarmony and why online dating? Well, last year I was in a reasonably good financial position, and I decided that because of the pandemic, it's there's social restrictions about meeting people directly. So I thought, well, I'd always dismissed this idea of online dating. The reason I dismissed it is because I thought there were too many fake people online. I was put off by the financial aspect of it. I thought these sort of websites sucked you in. And to be honest, I didn't really have a basis for not trusting people because I'd never used them before. It was just a gut feeling that it was kind of a cynical approach to take. Now, I went to eHarmony as it's a well-known dating website. It seems to be more professional than others, just in its whole approach. And I would have to say, my experience so far is that it is professional. I can't say that it isn't, because the way they format themselves is reasonably well done. I haven't encountered any major problems in terms of a technical point of view. I paid a fair bit of money. It was £109. That's for a whole year's membership. Now, what does that include? Well, it basically means you can send messages, you can see profiles, you can receive messages, you could do basically all those things that you can't do without a paid subscription. So, for example, it's actually a good marketing technique, and eHarmony is not the only one to do it. If you don't pay, basically you see blurred images and it says this person's interested in you. You can't do anything about it because you can't send them a message without an account. So that's a bit frustrating, and I think it's how, from a marketing point of view, they get people in because inevitably you'll be intrigued as to what someone wants to say to you. I'm not saying there's anything wrong about that. They are a business after all. They have to make money somehow. But the way Harmony works is you have a profile, you have the option to answer questions. You don't have to, but it can. Personally, I went for an approach of putting quite a lot of information about myself because not because I want to be a totally open book and just throw everything out on the surface, but personally, I'm put off profiles that are lacking information. Um, so I think, I want people to know what they're getting in a sense. So it's questions like, tell us about a memorable experience or what's your ideal first date, this sort of thing. And you could put photographs there. So I put a lot of effort into constructing my profile, and if I say so myself, I think I've done a good job at it. I've no regrets about the approach I've taken on my profile. I've got a range of photographs. I'm open about myself, and I've tried to get a balance of being positive. I have edited it a few times, being honest, because as you're on a website, you do learn more things about how it sort of operates and how people operate. Um, I read a profile about 10 minutes ago because I check this almost every day, and she basically had, it's what I call a very negative introduction. She was basically complaining, and she was saying that she was Chinese, but she was saying that people come up to her and say ni hao instead of her Cantonese language. And that's frustrating. Now, I can understand that it would be frustrating, but that's the sort of profile I'm automatically put off because I'm thinking, well, Yeah, that's okay. I can understand you being frustrated by that. I would be. I get frustrated with certain matters of identity as well. But if that's your entire introduction, it's just negative and cynical. And so what I've experienced is you start to see people's experiences come through. Now, like I say, that's an off-putting profile, but at the same time, I don't know her background. Maybe she has just been let down one too many times. And I must admit, there's times I felt like editing my profile to be quite, um, don't want to say cynical, but basically be quite blunt and say, if you're going to message me, don't waste my time or something like that. Because the truth is, if I was to use one word that would sum up dating sites, whether it be eHarmony or any other, it would be patient. Because, you get a situation where on eHarmony, you could see who sees your profile. So if you send a message to someone you're interested in them and you send a message, by the way, it's quite secure, so give it credit for that because it's modeled in such a way that you can't harass people. So, for example, not that I would, but just as a general point, it's well constructed in that sense. So you can send up to 5 messages, then you have to wait for the response, which is reasonable. But you can see who has seen your profile now. If you've sent someone a message and you know they've seen your profile and there's no follow up, then they're probably not interested. Some people might genuinely be busy, but my view on that is well, yes, people get busy in life, but if you're really looking for a serious relationship, you would make time for it. You would put some commitment into it. So I think for serious dating, being busy isn't really an excuse because you would find time if it matters that much to you. So the chances are, if they're not replying, they're not interested. I've kind of accepted that. One thing that is difficult is when someone replies and they seem to be interested, and then they just tail off. There's just nothing else. Like they'll say, "Oh, hello, thank you for the message. How are you?" or something like that. But then there's nothing else. They just kind of there's no follow up. There's no anything. That's frustrating. Um, so basically, ascertaining who's genuinely interested and who's just being polite, sometimes that is a blurry line, and it can be frustrating. Um, so I've put on my profile as a sort of disclaimer. I've tried to be positive. I've tried to say what I could bring to the table, things I'm looking for, how I would, if I find the right lady, I want to treat her specially. I'm trying to show my sincerity, but I'm also saying, look, please don't waste my time. So I'm trying to get that balance in my introduction, and it isn't easy because it is frustrating when people waste your time or when you're ghosted. That is to say, someone has shown interest, then they just tail off with no explanation. I honestly think I would rather someone said, "Look, I don't think we're compatible. Good luck," rather than pretending to be interested and then just not following up. A female friend of mine recently said, "Yes, it's true. Women do that." This was in her opinion, and we shouldn't, but it's because we don't want to hurt the guy's feelings. Well, ladies, honestly, saying nothing can be more hurtful than the honest truth, um, because the guy feels like, well, what's the situation here? Have I said something wrong? Is she interested? Is she not interested? I would always say it's better to just be honest, and you could do it in a tactful way. I mean, there's been members that I haven't been interested in, and I just knew it. Um, it was just a gut feeling. Maybe I wasn't attracted to them. Maybe I felt we had little in common. Maybe there was something about their approach I didn't care for. But I've always tried to be sensitive when I've let people down. I've been on the site now for, guess it'll be coming up to 9 months now. I've had experiences where people have messaged me, where I've messaged people, and I've had to let the people down a few times. You see, for me, a big litmus test, and this is extremely important. I always insist at some point we have a video talk. Doesn't have to be immediately. Texting back and forth is okay. From a technical point of view, actually, eHarmony is not the best because sometimes the messages kind of jump a bit. So someone replies and then you reply to their reply, but they've sent another. So there's a little bit of a technical issue there, which is why I sometimes offer, like, if she's comfortable with it, Can we connect somewhere else? Facebook, Instagram, email. Also, that's a good way to see if the person is who they say they are. Um, so I always insist at some point that let's have a video talk, and I've had quite a few, I have to say. Now, most of the time they've went okay, but some of them have got a little bit awkward because after like 10 or 20 minutes, I just know it's not going to work out because the person has said something that kind of, I've had a few rude people who were just a little bit too blunt. And I remember someone saying, "Oh, it's going to be like an interview." And I said, "No, no, we're just talking. That's all it is." And she was just a little bit like she was kind of putting me on the spot, but not in a good way, not reasonable questions like tell me about your family or what are you looking for in a relationship, um but I spoke to one girl, one young woman, and her whole thing was, um so do you want to ask questions? And I said, well, that's kind of how this works. Yeah, let's just talk. And she was very standoffish and very. I felt like I was making the effort, and it wasn't because she was shy. She was just standoffish, and that made me uncomfortable. And then I kind of made excuses, like in order to finish the talk because I just wasn't comfortable with it. But most of the time, it's been a case where we've had a good conversation, but I still felt it just wasn't quite there. I wasn't attracted to her. She wasn't attracted to me. There was just something that didn't quite connect. I do feel that if it's meant to be, there will be some sort of connection very early on. Um, Now, I believe that you can be friends with someone before developing that. I believe it doesn't have to, it's not like love at first sight, but there has to be some sort of connection that makes you want to go back to that person rather than it being a routine. And the other thing about eHarmony is when you're actively trying, as I do, having it does feel like starting from scratch all over again. Like, well, tell me about your family, tell me about your job. It can be a little bit mundane. And that isn't fair on the other person because it sounds like you might be getting bored. When it's not that case, it's just like it feels like it's starting all over again. So for me, maybe I should take a bit of a break from it. I'm using it because I paid for it and I want to utilize that. But I am thinking, and I've been thinking this for a while, that if I take a break from it, I'll have more motivation to get back into it. Right now, honestly, it seems a little bit mundane. Like I check it every day. Sometimes people reply, sometimes I have a talk with people. I spoke to someone the other day. She was from Hull, but she went to Leeds for the day. So we were talking in Leeds. Initially, there was technical problems because she was in Kirkgate Market, and she couldn't get the right Wi-Fi. But when the volume was sorted out, we had an okay conversation for about 2 hours. So it wasn't a case that it was so awkward that we couldn't talk. It was okay. It was a good conversation, but I just felt I don't really feel a connection here. It feels a little bit like talking to a work colleague or a friend, rather than someone who could be a romantic interest. And so I had to basically tell her that earlier this evening. She took it very well and she said that she felt the same way. So I think as long as you're diplomatic, as long as you're not cruel to people, um, then most reasonable people will take a rejection well. If someone takes a rejection badly, that to me is probably an indicator that they really aren't meant to be. I haven't had that experience so far, but if they get all defensive and like, what do you mean by this or something, it's kind of reiterates that they are not the right person. And I've been rejected. It's never fun. Uh, One person, although I have to say, one person that rejected me, and I don't want to get into too many personal details here because it's still a work in progress. But one person who rejected me, we're talking again as friends. Now, I really, really value her friendship. I'm happy that she's in my life. So, this is another thing about dating sites. The thing that you look for, obviously, is a romantic partner. But honestly, if you do make friends out of it, I don't think that's the end of the world. I'm always looking to increase my social circle anyway. Um, I don't think it's a bad thing to meet someone that you get on well with, that you respect with. Maybe for whatever reason there isn't going to be a romantic story there, but um, I've told her this. I've told her I value her friendship, and honestly, I'm not in a rush to try and make that work again because I'm just happy that she's in my life right now. In that sense, right. So, better days. You asked about some other things about dating in bars and so on. So I'll address that a bit. But anyway, before I go into that, that's just a heads up to anyone looking to get on the dating sites. It's not a case that people aren't sincere. Probably most people are sincere on a site like eHarmony. Although I had a strange thing the other day. There was this beautiful Polish girl, like really stunning. And her profile seemed intriguing. There was a good introduction. So I messaged her. The next day, eHarmony tells me this account has been suspended for user violation. And I thought, whoa, what did she do? So that was a bit strange. That sometimes happens. If anyone has any practical questions about eHarmony, ask me those specifically. I'll try to answer because I know the site quite well now. Um, yeah, so I would just say just be aware of that. Be aware that it does take patience, that it is not easy to get good communication. So people go on it for the right reasons, probably in most cases, but people do have different approaches. I would say this though, if you've spent money on it, put some effort into it, because I do believe that, you can't expect to find an ideal partner if you're not making any effort. Now I've tried to sell myself. I've tried to show that I'm a good guy. So I feel that I've made effort. I look at some profiles and I think, well, I mean, the worst profile of all is one where there is no picture, no introduction, and it's like there's absolutely nothing to go on. And it's not that aesthetic should be the only thing, what someone looks like, but honestly, it does help. One reason for that, it's not a shallow reason, it's about trust. Because if someone's not prepared to show their photograph, then other people will be thinking, other members will be thinking, well, are they who they say they are? That's one issue. Um, Maybe they feel that they're not attractive and it's a confidence issue. But honestly, if they have a really good introduction, that is a big selling point as well. Another one that's off putting is really cliched sort of introductions like, I am looking for trust. I'm looking for a lifelong boyfriend. Well, yeah, it's give me a bit more than that. Tell me about your personality. Tell me about your quirks, anything. I always look at profiles that somehow stand out in that sense, and I hope that mine does. So I think you need to put some effort into it. This is not to say that you're going to be repaid for that effort, but at least it means that you know in your conscience that you are trying, and therefore, yeah, you're more likely to get views that way. I mean, I may not have had success so far technically, but I have had communication. I have spoken to people. Right, so this issue about bars, to be honest, even before the pandemic, even before the social restrictions, I was never that comfortable with it. Um, I've sort of tried it before, but I've just never been the sort of guy to go up to a woman in a bar and say, "Can I get you a drink?" and hope it goes from there. In TV shows and films, it always looks kind of easy because, for one thing, you can always hear the conversation. In the real world, what I find, especially in this country, bars blast the music. I just don't like the atmosphere. I find that what's the point when you literally can't communicate with the other person. Um, about a year ago, little bit less than a year ago now, I did speak to a woman. It wasn't an indoor bar; it was like a kind of outdoor bar that had been converted from a listed building not far from here. Actually, she was quite attractive. She was also a bit drunk, and I was aware of that, and I thought, well, we're talking here, but I don't want to feel guilty like I'm taking advantage of her. And yeah, it was, I guess, I was sitting there and we were just making small talk, and she was attractive, so was her friend. And it was like, I think, to be honest, I was just checking my confidence with women rather than hoping anything would develop. So yeah. Um, I mean, the thing is, I wouldn't say I've ever been painfully shy. But when I was younger, probably right up to my mid 20s, I always had this thing where I was friends with women, but going beyond that was quite difficult for me. Um, my first real girlfriend didn't come till my mid-20s, which is late, really, by Western standards. Since then, I've had three partners. I'm fairly confident with women, but uh, I haven't had the best luck in the world due to circumstance, due to a range of reasons. Now, going up to women in bars, I just find that it's not my comfort zone. I'd much prefer a coffee shop. Before I got into eHarmony, there was a woman who worked at a kiosk in my city, and I was attracted to her, so I asked her out for a coffee. And she said, "Oh, maybe when we get to know each other better." I figured, well, that's kind of the point. So I took that to be, well, she's clearly not interested. I'm not even going to push this. Um, Rejection can be difficult, especially depending on what sort of rejection you get. And the truth is, there is no magic wand to this. I think popular culture, particularly in the West, I mean, even, I've been watching Big Bang Theory, and it's a good show, but very much like Friends, it shows all the characters, even the socially awkward ones, at some point they get partners and they're having intimate relationships, and it's like, it seems natural. They have arguments and they have back and forth, but um, the truth is, probably the amount of intimacy people face or people have in relationships is exaggerated in the real world. So we're left with this perception that, I've been single for 6 years. Sometimes it does play on my mind, but honestly, I'm not too depressed about it because I believe it will come. My last girlfriend, I met her at a party. It was a house party. What had happened was a guy I was doing an assignment for, well, not doing the assignment, that would be plagiarism, but I was basically proofreading his assignment, Chinese guy. And yeah, he paid me to do that, but apparently I helped him a lot. So to thank me, he invited me to this house party he had organized. And he was kind of a cool guy. He had lots of connections, and um, yeah, it was a good party. It was good, like what I would call a proper house party. Well, it was in their flat, a converted hotel in Newcastle. And it was a good party, and we had a good time. But anyway, there was one young lady who I was kind of attracted to. I thought, yeah, she's cute. And we started chatting the next day because I'd stayed over, so I was just kind of in the kitchen getting over my hangover with a cup of tea, which is always a good cure, incidentally. And she came in, and we just started chatting. And kind of in passing, I said, you've never been to Sunderland, have you? I can show you around sometime if you like. And I was kind of expecting her to make an excuse and say she was busy or something, but she actually said she was free that day, and I thought, this is interesting. Do you want to come back with me for a bit? I could show you around, just yeah. And she actually did, and basically that's where it developed. And we started dating for a while. Eventually, she was Chinese as well. She had to go back because of visa issues. Her visa had expired. But we had a bit of a relationship, and that developed really so unexpectedly. I would never have thought that that could have happened for me, but it did. And this wasn't like me being awkward and, oh, please accept me. It was just a natural feeling of this is right. And unless you've ever experienced it, you won't know what it's like to just know that natural sense of ease that this is right. It's something that isn't easily described. And having experienced both situations, I've been in a situation where I've approached someone and it gets awkward because I just know she's not interested. Um, Whereas I've been in this situation and it's lots of things, body language, is eye contact, and it was fantastic. I missed her enormously when she left. Um, but I'm very grateful for that memory. So what I would say is, if you're someone who struggles with confidence, um, this is a guy who was single until his mid-20s. I didn't have experience. I had female friends, but I did find it difficult to make that transition. I'm certainly no Casanova, but I've had three girlfriends since that time. I've had experience. I'm confident now, um, at least more confident. And patience is very important. You might think it's never going to happen, But sometimes these things really do come unexpectedly when you're not looking. And I guess that's the downside to a dating site where people are looking. On the other hand, at least with a dating site, you know everyone is there to find a partner, which is less awkward than going up in a bar where she could have a boyfriend or she's not looking for someone. On a dating site, everyone there is looking for someone. So at least you know that there's a vested interest, even if she's not interested in you. Um, Basically, yes, sometimes I get a little bit tired of being single. Sometimes I get a little bit lonely, but honestly, it's nowhere near as bad as it once was. At university, I was miserable with this. It was a really, really challenging experience. But I know that I've had three wonderful women in that time, been with three wonderful women in that time, I should say. And for various reasons, it didn't work out, but it can happen. It can happen. Um, so don't be hard on yourself. Patience, I know it's easier said than done, but just accept that it might well come when you're not looking for it. It might be certain circumstances. Maybe you're in certainly expanding opportunities in life, whether it be going to a particular social club, expanding your social circle. Um, Truthfully, money does come into it for various reasons. In order to expand out, you need often money for transport to go somewhere, to go to social clubs. And truthfully, I think a lot of women will deny this, but I think most women, if they're being honest, want a man who's financially stable. That's something that is a factor. There's no getting away from it. And I'm not judging that. I'm not saying that's wrong. Just like a lot of guys might go for a good looking woman, there's just people have certain things that they look for. And as long as you're not snobby with other people, as long as you're not openly looking down on other people, I say that's fine. It's just being honest. So that's what I would conclude. If anyone wants to ask me specifically about eHarmony, I'll try my best to answer. Um, or maybe tell me about your experience on another dating website. My experience with eHarmony has at times been rough. Certainly that experience I mentioned. If I can find my older video, put a link to it in this so you can reference that. That was a rough experience, but I wouldn't blame eHarmony for that. I think that was just her personality. I mean, this is the thing, you can't blame a website because some of its members are a bit strange or they take a certain approach that is not necessarily because the website hadn't done anything. And actually, on the website, she was who she said she was, and I wouldn't blame eHarmony for that. Um, but it was quite a rough experience. So I am going to put a link in this video. Right, let me know your thoughts. Let me know if you've had a particular experience on a website. By no means am I presenting myself as this really experienced, confident guy. Um, I'm reasonably experienced, I'm reasonably confident, but it's a work in progress. I'm still looking, I'm learning about myself, I'm learning that it takes a lot of patience. But I also think, I will say this, this is a very important thing. I've come to believe that before you can really let someone else into your life, before you can invest in that, you need to have a degree of stability. I'm not talking just financial stability, that probably helps, but you need to know what direction you're going in. You need to have a certain base. This is not to say you have to be perfect and you can't have concerns or shortcomings in life, but I think it is important to have a certain direction and a certain base. If relationships are complicated. One question that I think is very important, I always ask the lady, well, how do you deal with arguments? How do you deal with this? Because this is an approach that if we take this relationship seriously, all couples row from time to time. People approach it in different ways. So you need to know all these things. Don't be afraid to ask important questions. You need to know. Okay, people. Let me know your thoughts and let me know if you have any questions about eHarmony and Better Days. Thank you for the suggestion.